Good morning. It is morning, by the way. It is two. Let's see, 2:34 in the morning. You're probably asleep. I was asleep. Then I woke up. I went to bed around. Hmm, I don't know. My daughter and I were playing Yahtzee and 500 Rummy, and then we were talking for a while, and then we decided to go to bed. I guess it was like 10 o'clock. And then I woke up about half an hour ago and wanted coffee. And so I was like, oh, damn, you know? So I was like, well, let me take a trip over to the store and have a cup of coffee. And then I started thinking about how stupid it was to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and have coffee and then try to go back to sleep, right? But I love my coffee. Well, shit. So, but then I started thinking, and I was like, you know what? I don't like rules very much. I do things that, most people kind of scratch their heads and it's like, those are some weird things that you do there, Anthony. And a lot of people have looked at the way I operate, the way I think, and have said that. And I guess if you live in a rules-based paradigm, they may have something there. But I've never been the kind of person that is held in one place by rules. And I don't think you should be either. And I just don't believe that it's necessary to think that way, to act that way, to behave that way, like you're part of some kind of, sequence of events that has to unfold in any one particular way. And I don't know, man, I just find it boring to show up for something in the usual way every day. And it's just something that has never really whet my appetite. And I do think that living a rules-based life can also bring you to a place of stagnation and just an unease. But, right, if we're truthful, we also have to say that if you live a life that's totally devoid of rules, then you'll just wind up behind bars. Now, that probably isn't a good quality of life either. So how do you live the life you're supposed to live, but without hurting yourself, right? Without hurting others. I mean, that's important too. But when it comes to hurting other people, even when it comes to hurting yourself, a lot of that really depends on your internal state and their internal state. And your thoughts on freedom. Your freedom, their freedom. People are free to think however they want, and so are you. And sometimes, when it comes to relationships or jobs or careers or anything, plans for your day, when they include other people, there has to be some kind of synchronicity. There has to be some kind of coordination. And so you do that and you see if that works. And if it doesn't, a lot of people will try to hang on to something that, for whatever reason, is just not working. And it creates this dis-ease in their life. And this dis-ease is something that we absolutely do have to be careful about. And there comes a time in your life, where you've got to remove elements in your life that are bringing dis-ease into your awareness, into your space, into your life. And it's hard to do because we have all these ideas about attachments and responsibilities, more rules, right? I just have never been one to play by the rules. It started, I guess, I don't know, I think my biggest departure from a rules-based reality was when 9/11 happened. If you could recall that time when the planes drove into the towers. I went to work like everybody that day. My job required that I'd get up early, 5 o'clock in the morning, get to work by 7, work all day, get off at 3, go home. That was my life for 9 years. And in 9/11, you know how that changed everybody's life, including mine, so dramatically and so much so without any warning whatsoever. I arrived to work like it was just another day, and everybody's quiet and watching the television. And I'm just looking around, and I'm like, what's wrong with you people? And everybody's so quiet. And they said that a plane drove into the tower. I'm looking at the TV, and there's all this smoke coming out of one of the towers. And I was standing there trying to understand what the fuck just happened. And then somebody said it was terrorists. And I was like, what? And as I'm standing there, the other tower exploded. And I was like, what the fuck is going on here? And everybody started, reacting and getting scared. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And as the morning started to unfold, everybody was on TV anyway. They were talking about all of these ideas about what was happening, these theories. And then they started talking about other planes in other places, one in an open field where there was like no debris left whatsoever, just a big giant hole. And then the Pentagon. And I was like, we're under attack? Like, I felt attacked. I really did. And I'm just looking at everything that was happening. I was like, how in the world is this happening? How could this be happening? How could there be this kind of coordination to where they were able to pull this off? And it was something that really, I don't know, man, that had a stronghold on me for many years. And I guess in some ways it still does. But I have my theories now. At that time I didn't. I just believed everything that our government said. I was a rules-based guy. I never would have ever would have entertained any idea or notion that our government, your newscasters, and those people who, were at the front of the line, who led the way, who we all thought that they were our people, that they're telling you the truth and they would never lie to you and that they cared about you and they loved you. And they're telling us that these people were terrorists and, that we were under attack. And I believed it. Just like I didn't have any reason not to believe it, because I was a rule-based guy and I was trusting. I had zero boundaries. I didn't even know what a boundary was at that time. And I just believed in the goodness of people because my heart was always open to people. And I had no acquaintance, no experience with that level of dishonesty that I later came to know and even appreciate when it comes to looking at those that would lead us to the promised land. So, but that's a talk for another story. Oh, God, why do I love coffee so much? Even bad coffee. Not old coffee though, just coffee that's maybe, it's so funny because like Starbucks coffee, which is considered to be, I don't know, right, the creme de la creme of coffees, is so strong that, I don't know, I don't really care for it too much, but I keep drinking it for some reason, but it's because of the nice people that are behind the counters there. But as far as flavor goes, it's not that rewarding. I prefer, believe it or not, like Circle K coffee or 7-Eleven, which I think is better. Yeah. So, where were we? Talking about rules. Rules-based systems. And it's just my belief that rules are obstacles that other people arranged. And if I think to myself like how I want to live my life and how the things I want to do in my life, I say, well, all right, I want to do this, but to get over there, to get to point B from point A, I have all these obstacles, these rules that are in front of me, and I didn't put those things there. And so, if you're a person that's thinking about starting a business, depending upon what the business is, let's say it's a food-based business, well, then to be a legitimate business, right, you've got to register your business name with the government. You've got to pay fees. You've got to do all this footwork. You've got to go to the health department. You have to introduce yourself to them and get all friendly with them. And then they give you a 12-page booklet full of rules and say, thank you very much for obeying the rules. And, oh, by the way, that will cost you about $1,600 to get your license, to get you up and running. Now, and, before you even get one foot in the door of running a business, you've got all these people with their hands out looking to get money from you, right? And then there's people who will also be happy to take your money to tell you how to proceed efficiently, to navigate through all of the rules that are now standing in front of you. And before you ever sell one thing or one service, you're broke. And you know that is a real reality for many people. And they never get off the ground with their entrepreneurial projects. And of course, you have people who do manage to get a foot in the door. And then within a year to 2 to 3 to 5 years, it's over already. And I can recall thinking to myself, like, boy, I don't know, how long will my ideas last? How long will my business last when I started this business like 18 years ago? And once you do have your foot in the door and, money's coming in and going out, you can quickly understand why so many businesses go under within just a handful of years. Because it requires so much of you, and it requires a mindset that maybe you just haven't come into acquaintance yet with. You haven't come into acquaintance with that mindset, or you're still developing it, and you're coming up against all these rules, and you're like, oh, I have to handle this a certain way. I have to do it a certain way. And going back to the 9/11 story, that morning my whole life changed, like completely. And I had this idea in my head that I was going to quit my job and join the army at 35 years old to fight the terrorists. I'm not joking. And a real knee-jerk reaction, rooted in love for my country, love for my fellow citizens, but also a knee-jerk reaction. And at that time in my life, I just lacked a very healthy dose of skepticism when it came to the things that would come out of the mouths of people. And, many years later, I came across some footage that really surprised me, because when I saw it many years later, I remembered I saw it that morning. And the footage was of this female reporter who was standing in front of World Trade Center 7. It was a different building than the two towers. And she proceeded to tell everybody that building also went down, was destroyed. And I didn't realize that right behind her was Building 7, and it was not destroyed. It was right there, right behind, and you could see it in the camera. Something to look up, you guys, if you ever find the time. And but my mind had already made up its mind. It was going to go join the army at 35 years old, because I believed that my country needed me. So I called up the army people and I said, put me in, coach. I'm ready. I want to go to Iraq. I want to go to Afghanistan, or wherever the fuck you need me. So it's so funny, because the recruiter on the phone started asking me questions like, are you married? Do you have kids? And I was telling him no. He's like, are you running from the law? I said no. And he just really wanted to know why somebody my age would want to do this. And so I told him. And I went down to the recruiting office and pretty much signed up right there. I had to go through a few other steps, but pretty much that was it. And I did it. 35 years old, I went to boot camp, and my army career started. Well, I could tell you that boot camp is not a place for 35-year-olds. That I could tell you. Okay? Not most of it. They called me grandpa in there, and I guess I really was, because everybody else was like 18 to 21. 21 was considered old, so I was ancient. And they literally did call me grandpa. But I grew to love boot camp. I graduated boot camp, went into the regular army afterwards, and found myself on my way to Iraq. And I am now a combat vet. I spent a lot of years in deployments and meeting all kinds of people and seeing all kinds of situations and witnessing the loss of lives on a level that very few people get to experience. And that time in that environment, it changed me forever. My innocence, you could say, was stripped away, and my heart laid bare to the real horror of man. And what man would do to get to the place that man wants to go. And if there was a person in his way, then he would blow that person to smithereens. He would shoot that person. He would destroy that person. I learned a hard truth in my time in Iraq. And I remember once I was holding guard on one of our convoys, and there was this person in a car in front of me wanting to get past, and I had my rifle up and it's pointed right at his car, and he's wanting to try to get around me, and I'm telling him, don't do it. Stay there. Just stay there. You know, not to advance. And this is one guy, and there's tons of other cars behind him, and they're all doing what they're supposed to be doing, following the rules. But this guy decides he's not going to follow the rules, and he starts moving that car. And so I start unloading into his engine. And you know, the funny thing is that I was just doing my job, following the rules that were given to me. And I got in a little bit of trouble for that. And some people that cared about me had to cover for me. And all of a sudden, I was under the spotlight, like I did something wrong. And I was like, well, I was just following the rules. I didn't get into any serious trouble for that, but let me tell you, I learned a lot of truths in the theater of war. And when I got free from that obligation, I told myself that I was done following rules. I wasn't going to listen to anyone else, because all that would do was put me in a body bag, an early grave. not one that was self-directed, but that was presented itself because of somebody else's ideas. And so this whole experience, 9/11 really changed me to the core. And I can't say that it was all bad. I can't. I came out much stronger. I realized that I could do things at a level that I didn't think I could. That I was smarter than I thought I was. More resilient than I thought I was. And I also saw that I could lead others. That they looked to me for direction. And I was willing to lead the way. Which was also rare because so many people hide when it comes to leadership and stepping out in front and being the example. But I found that I had a level of courage that a lot of people seemingly do not have. And that's always perplexed me, why the bulk of the population, myself included for most of my life, was so rules-based and so content to follow the dictates of others instead of paving the way ourselves. So I embarked on this mission of self-discovery. And like I say, when I got finished with my obligations with the Army, I found that I really didn't have a place where I was before. And I was working 3 jobs. And it was really tough because there was no home in any of those 3 jobs. And they were pretty much all on the weekends. And I didn't really have much during the week. And I couldn't live this way. And there were a lot of things, a lot of memories from Iraq and a lot of problems that I was having currently integrating or reintegrating into life, regular life. A life that doesn't include a formation first thing in the morning, counting others as present, and fulfilling a laundry list of jobs and tasks like you did in the Army. And I wasn't happy, and I wasn't fulfilled, and I wasn't directed, and I didn't know what to do about it. So I got this idea in my head that I needed to be an entrepreneur. And I needed to start a business, which I always wanted to do. So I start this business. And I want to tell you guys just a little bit about what it took in the early days of starting this business that's now 18 plus years old, on its way to being 18 years old, and how you blast. How is it that you walk right past all the statistics, and how you could still be standing when so much was up against you, and so many different obstacles, including people, even people who were close to you, and people that you would never dream would try to snuff your flame or put you out of business, or even put you in behind bars through lies and manipulation. Your own wife, your own family tried to take you out. And let me tell you, that is real life right there. just like your government telling you one thing when they're really doing another. And that dynamic is present everywhere. And it is absolutely an energy, a dynamic that threatens to take you out everywhere else in your life too, with people that you never would dream would lie to you, manipulate you, set you up, lie to the authorities about you. I'm going to tell you something, you guys. There's only one person in this world that you can count on, and that person is you. And you better be a person with some level of integrity if you want a place in the business world that lasts a long time. And you better have some rules, your own rules though, about how things work and how they're gonna work. And you'd be damned. Anybody that doesn't want to go along with those rules can take a flying leap. And that's what you have to be like. Your rules, not somebody else's. Because there's only one person that you can count on, and that person is you. You lay your head down at night, it's only your thoughts that are rolling around in that head over there. And you're either going to have to be at peace with those thoughts, or if you're not, you're going to have to be willing to do whatever it takes to bring peace into that space. Now, that's easier said than done, for sure. So I wanted to give you some examples how to make it in business, the early stages of business when so much is against you, because that's where we were talking about. You're bumping up against all these rules and regulations when it comes to running your business. And I remember in the early days when I was set up on the side of the road, it was really tough to get customers because people are traveling at very high rates of speed, right? And they have to pull over safely off of the road. And sometimes these roads did not have a suicide lane. And, they would slow down. There'd be cars behind them. And it was like, oh my God, you got to close your eyes, just waiting for an accident, which in all the years that I was on the road, there were 3 accidents that I saw for customers wanting to come get honey from me. So just me being in business caused 3 accidents. And all 3 of them happened right in front of me. Ugh. But I was always faced with the cops, the ultimate authorities, and even the city regulators. Well, they would drive by, see me set up on the side of the road, start asking me for my license, asking me if I could belong there, if I had permission to be there. And I'll tell you, it was a regular thing. And, the cops would be like, hey, you can't be here. You've got to pack up and you got to get out. And, I remember in the early days of this business, I would just be like, well, okay. And I would pack up my stuff and I'd leave. And then as time goes by, and I'm seeing just how important it is for me to be there, I start thinking to myself, I'm not leaving if they tell me to leave. I don't know what I'm going to do about that, but I'm not going to leave. And so I remember on the next time I got asked to leave, I said, well, I'll tell you what. I said, it took me a long time to get set up over here. And I got people that are going to be coming here. I said, let me finish out the day. and then, I'll find a different place to set up. And they would say, okay. All right. And when they would leave, I'd be like, you know, in the past, I would just say, they would tell me to leave, and I would say, okay. And I would leave, and then I wouldn't make any money. So I started testing this out. And they kept stopping. I mean, it happens, right? They would stop. Oh, we got a complaint about this and that. And I would say, oh, listen, I'll get that taken care of, whatever. So that I fit into the regulations. But how about you just let me stay here for the rest of the day, since there's not that much time left or whatever. And, because I won't be able to find another place to set up. Or I got kids at home, which I didn't. So I was just like, I got to feed the family. I had all kinds of stories, but all the stories were that I wasn't leaving. And was banking on their human decency to let me be there, to at least finish out the day. So I wasn't telling them to go fuck themselves and that they could go stick it. But I was saying, I'm just trying to earn a living, and I need to be here to do that. And at least just let me finish out the day. And they would. And, when I started approaching that situation, that scenario where they would ask me to leave, when I started approaching it that way, the problem of me having to leave stopped. And I remember, I think the last time I remember being, I had a sheriff who got pretty upset with somebody who was working here at that time, but is no longer here. That person was removed, told to leave, and they did. And I got on the horn, on the phone, called the sheriff's department, and I found the right people. And I just laced into them. I'm yelling at the sheriff, and I'm telling him that is our spot, and that we need to be there, that it's a family business, and we need to run it there, because that's where our customers are. And he's like, well, you can't be there. And I said, listen, you tell me that I can't be there, then I can't feed my family. And I need to be there. And I said, if at least let me finish out the month there, so that we can start telling our customers we're going to go somewhere else. What do you think he did? He said, okay. And so I'm going to tell you one more story. It's with the health department. Okay. And when it came to the health department, when I first got into this business, I knew that I was going to bring this business to a level to where I needed to comply with all the rules and regs, because it's just like, imagine bodybuilding. You want to compete on a professional level, and these guys are all taking steroids, and you can't compete within that structure unless you're also on steroids. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. And me, as a very small business and businessman, I knew that I had set my sights on a bigger platform, a bigger, more fuller experience when it comes to business. And so I started structuring things right away to meet the requirements that I knew I would be held to by certain regulatory agencies, and health department being one of them. And I didn't have to do this because at the time I didn't fit the description. They weren't thinking about me, let's put it that way. But there did come a time where they changed their rules, and they needed to have certain, I guess, documentations in place that they didn't have. Not because I wouldn't give it to them, but because they never fucking asked me for it. God damn. So they just started taking our honey off the shelves of the stores that it was in. And I got a call from one of the Ace Hardwares telling me that the health department was there and ordered them to take our products off the shelves. And I was thinking to myself, what? So yeah, so then another Ace Hardware called. So I got on the phone and I called the health department, and I got to the person I needed to talk to, and I told him who I was. And I said, your people are over at this store right now, directing them to take our products off the shelf. And he knew about it. And he says, well, we need to have this documentation, that we have to have an inspection. And I'm like, hey, listen, I have never said no to any inspections. I'm ready. You can inspect right now. You want to send somebody over, come over, and you can see my facilities. He said, well, it's going to take us about 2 weeks to get over there. I said, 2 weeks. And then what's going to happen between now and then? You're going to continue to take things off the shelf? And he said, yeah. And I said, no, you're not. You're going to tell your people to put that shit back on the shelf right now. And he's just quiet on the phone. And I'm telling him what he's going to do. And I said, you're going to put that shit on the shelf back where it belongs. Or you come over here right now and you inspect, because I'm ready. He said, well, we can't do that. I said, you're going to do it, or I am going to be a kind of thorn in your side that you can't even possibly imagine. I have to feed my family, and I cannot survive this ridiculous moment because you have to follow your rules. He's like, well, I understand what you're saying. I said, I don't care what you think you understand. You're going to put that stuff back on the shelf. And he's like, well, I don't really know what to tell you. I said, I'm going to come over there, and I will never leave. And I'm going to be yelling in your ear every moment until you do the right thing. And guess what? Guess what they did? They stopped. Why? Now, I could have just said, oh, damn. Well, that's the way things go. I guess I'll just have to wait. Meanwhile, they go ripping through all the different stores that carry our products and start pulling it off the shelf. And I'm telling you these stories because you need to understand that in this world, if you want to go to the front of the line, if you want to experience the kind of longevity, the kind of life, the kind of experience, the kind of growth that entrepreneurism has in store for you, you have to be willing to meet that potential with a fight and an energy that doesn't back down to anybody's rules. If I followed all the rules that were set out in front of me, I would not be in business today. I would not. And I'm not encouraging you to be a lawless citizen. I'm not. But I am telling you that there are times in your life where somebody's going to tell you you can't do something and you need to do it. You will need to fight. You will need to stand up. And you're going to have to claim your space. And you need to be willing to do whatever it takes to remain standing there. Right? So that means getting out of your comfort zone. That means you got to stand up and you got to say, I'm not moving. I am not moving. Move me. Do it. Try. You just try to move me. Try and move me and watch what I do to you. That is the mindset that you have to develop. Because if it's to be, it's up to me. Do you understand? If it's to be, it's up to me. And don't ever, ever let somebody else tell you what you can and you cannot do. I don't care who they are. I don't care if they wear a badge, wear a gun on their hip, whatever prestige they hold. You figure out a way to get what you want, and you claim your space. That's how you do it. That's why I'm up at, when most people are sleeping, I'm up at 3:20, having coffee, talking to my people, my friends, my customers. I do what I want to do, when I want to do it. I don't give a damn what anybody else thinks about it. If someone has a problem with it, if someone says I'm crazy, stupid, a dreamer, an idiot, I don't care. You know what I do with people like that? I cast them out into the wilderness. Yeah, just give them the boot. And I love it. I love it. I really do. I relish the opportunity for a good fight. When it's with somebody that is an asshole, that's unreasonable, that's punitive, vindictive, just obnoxious, then I enjoy casting them out into the outer darkness. It brings me great joy. On the other side, I also am and have a huge heart for anyone that is willing to come to the table with logic and reason and good faith. I'm somewhat like a mirror. Whatever it is that you show me is what you get in return. You show me kindness, you get the ultimate kindness. You show me that you're deceptive, and you are in big trouble. So that is the way you're going to make it in this business, in this world, with boundaries, but they're your boundaries. They're your rules, not somebody else's. And that's the thing that you have to know and understand. And then when you start operating that way, then the world starts bending to your will. And opportunities come your way because you are a sovereign being. Now, you may not realize that or know that or believe it yet, but at some point in your life, you'll come to know that is what the universe, that is what God is asking of you. Yes, God is asking. He's begging. God is begging you to see the Godhead in you and to live that dynamic, to bring that dynamic forth, to be bold with your intentions. Of course, those intentions need to be, need to be good intentions, right? You don't exist to overtake and lord over people, but leadership is a holy quality, and God wants you, the universe wants you to be strong to know your purpose and to step forward boldly with those qualities that the universe, that God has given you. And when you say yes to your destiny, then nothing and nobody can stop you. Your story is a long story. It's a long story, guys. You got a lot of years to figure this stuff out, but you got to start somewhere. If you're not happy with where you're at, you must make some changes. And the changes always start inside that space between your ears. It's a critical self-analysis of the life you have led, the life you are currently leading, and where do you want to be 5 years from now. So, I hope this little talk today was instructive when it comes to rules, courage, and the strength to put one foot in front of the other, to take charge of your destiny, and the willingness to not let anyone get in your way. Somebody is standing in front of you telling you you can't do it, you shouldn't do it. Your heart's telling you, I want to do it. Whatever it is, you sidestep that person, that environment, whatever it is, and you follow your dreams. Because you don't want to wind up 20 years later down the road regretting it. Be strong. And yeah. I got so many things going through my head. I swear to God, I could sit here for another 3 hours and talk to you guys. But I think I feel like dancing, so I'm gonna put some music on, just do some dancing. You know, I think I've said enough. That's it, done. But remember, you're the one. You're the chosen. You guys, stop watching television. You're the chosen. You are the one. Take charge of your life. Choose yourself. If you don't feel like you've got a destiny, then sit down with a piece of paper and a pen and design one. And if you need help with that, then give me a call. I love you. I really do. All of you. I encourage you. And I expect great things from you because I expect great things from myself. I hold myself to a high standard, and I hold everyone else around me to a high standard also. Not because I'm a tyrant, because I love you. I truly love you. And I only want what's best for you, and I want what's best for me, and I want what's best for this world that we live in. The world that my daughter is going to live in when I'm gone. And I want to have a say in what this world looks like when I'm dying on that bed, when I'm 120. But it doesn't happen by wishing it into being. You got to step forward. You have to take charge and make it happen. These things don't happen by themselves. All right? That's it. Again, I love you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.